Something manifests itself constantly. Today, C-SPAN is manifesting the shooting and anniversary of a certain events about shooting, trying to rally the drums again about gun control when everybody knows a copying machine, which costs $40, can make it out of scrap. We have to do better than the narratives of the last back and forth 40 years and try to come together with what is the real problem, and that is clinical bullying. Because if it wasn't clinical bullying, it wouldn't keep occurring at the same locations. Now, the clinical bullying is just a passive action that you continuously keep on doing, which is wrong. First off, you wake the people up before, in order to catch the bus, it's not even daylight. You force people out of their homes in the winter times, maybe to feed some kids, but to, I don't even want to be within 100 miles of a snowflake in the wintertime. That means I want to close off my house, drain the water, and roll out. But it's not allowed to happen like that because we got compulsory attendance laws that is only facilitated during the winter time and not the summer. It makes no sense. So we're going to have to change that. But there's no dialogue talking about this clinical bullying. You should not keep on questioning the children at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, whatever you're doing about, do you sex, drugs, and self-mutilation constantly over and over and over. Then you put them in a dangerous scenario where we're all connected, and we see on the news that we could run off the road in the bus and people get hurt in the bus because they don't even have seatbelts in the bus. I don't know what is going on. I've been in buses. I've never seen padding in the facility, but I've never rode the public school bus. And I've heard of a lot of bad behavior that occurs on the school bus. So it's just a matter of time because of the bad behavior and decrepit machinery. It's everybody knows you cannot be stressed out and properly develop. Parents shouldn't. I was sick. That was bad, but it was just enough where I was making it. I made it. But stress that was put on my parents when I wasn't attending because I was sick was uncalled for, and that's part of the clinical bullying. It was absolutely stress caused not by just the sick kid. We were dealing with that. Trying to get my diet right, I don't know, but I was trying to do the best I could. The sitting in school and the sitting in the car almost made it herniate. Almost. Because I wasn't allowed to be upright, moving around, flushing, if that makes any sense to the clinical professionals, my system, because they couldn't figure out when I was a child, when I went to all the doctors, all I could do is give a bill, but they couldn't figure out that when I got stabbed in the chest and they give me pain medicine or whatever, I got constipated. They couldn't figure out how to wash that out of there without sticking a metal grinder in there, according not a water jet, but a metal grinder. Let's try a water jet if a regular anyway ain't working, but that's clinical professionals charged a lot of money and left me not healed. It's terrible. asked me if I wanted them to stick a metal thing. They didn't say water pick. I let them sit. They'd already used the water thing a dozen times, but they didn't use it right. They were stupid. I don't know if I need to invent the medical device or not, but I'm pretty sure I could learn how to, with all the ingenuity in the world, little small 1/4-inch hoses and then bigger 1/2-inch hoses, could make a two-way flushing device to break up a turd. I'm pretty sure I can figure that out without even one X-ray, let alone that glow in the dark shit and multiple other. Clinical bullying is neglect of stuff like that. And then, okay, well, that happened, but I'm getting stronger. I'm an adult now. Work a decade in a restaurant and feed my stomach back and get all good. Pretty good right now. So I get all good and get car wreck. So, I mean, I do what anybody does. It's got a hurt neck that's all jacked up the rest of your life. I hired a lawyer. And that lawyer calls me one day and says, well, we got this. And I'm like, well, that's what I got in medical bills. But this is pretty serious, which it is. 2 decades later, and it ain't let up yet. Let up some compared to what it started out as. It took a couple of decades. But it took a while to get back. But clinical professionals, that lawyer just didn't even talk to me about it again. He just quit me and allowed them to get away with. I mean, there's something to be done. It sucks. I could feel the tissue. I'd say if it had just a little stent over top of it, it'd work pretty good. But they don't. I don't even want to think about it. It sucks. Clinical professionals don't want to think about it because I ain't got insurance. I don't know. But they said $50 insurance. What's that going to cover? Then I got these needs where I was jogging down the Broyhill Road on the Appalachian State, and there's a sidewalk that goes around the road. Then there's a sidewalk that cuts off the road, and there's 4 6x6 4 6x6 wooden posts there. And I'm running down that hill in the middle of the night with lights. And I cut to go back toward the buildings away from the road on the sidewalk. Take about 3 or 4 big steps running. And my knees get cut off because there's a damn 1/2-inch cord stretched across the sidewalk. I got up and walked home on that. Like this. Anyhow, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go work. One more cup of coffee. Hit the door. Phone in the pocket. Clinical bullying. And then I become a parent, homeowner. And I get my kid in daycare so I can work. All right, pushing through. Then one day, I send them over to my sister's, so I take the weekend off. And the daycare hits them in the side of the face with a door, and then calls social services on me. And the next morning, DSS called me and said, we got to do a safety check on your kid. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, you choking, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what the ever? So he's over at my sister's. I said, well, let's go. So he drove over there. with me, and seen my kid. Jeff Lee was his name, the social services worker. And then the you know, he says, "Well, he looks fine to me." And I said, "Well, I don't know what that is on his chin, but I'm sorry, he's got a dirty face." And then it was a bruise. And I said, "Well, where's this bruise come from?" And I remembered the day before I picked him up and his little cheeks was red. I thought he might have been sleeping or something, or I don't know. I mean, kids, I used to get beat up all the time. But then it turns out what happened was the clinical professionals had slammed his head with the door. She'd had him standing in front of the door or something, and then the mom had walked through it. Something to that effect. So I called everybody. I got pissed. And I needed a seat in the public school system because I needed to be able to work because I have to pay property taxes and try to maintain transportation. So these clinical professionals, everything from the FBI, and that's another thing, C-SPAN, FBI, that is one of the big problems because they do not acknowledge anything unless it's handwritten or if it's a mailed in. They don't respond to emails worth a hoot. I did get a response. I did, and they're like, "Well, no, it doesn't qualify as harassment and bullying." And guess what? It's come more apparent what it is. It's clinical bullying, where people that don't attend these schools are discharged and treated like shit. I don't need to go and get an administrative degree to learn how to delegate the civil population children around through a blue collar. So anyhow, they tried that. They closed it. That was in 2013. Then I went to the school and I demanded a seat in preschool. And I said, "What did you spend all the money on your salaries?" And so the superintendent implemented me in the communicating threats. I didn't even have a cell phone that day, and I wasn't even out of bed because I didn't have my child going to school. So don't try to tell me. But then the clinical bullying began, and they came and they went through my house like they champs. I let them through my house because I really don't have nothing to hide. They'd have to dig pretty daggum deep under these cushions. Well, I don't even have the same couches anymore. I don't have nothing, right? So I don't have company. I ain't had no company since 2013 after the glove of the law went everywhere I went. All my friends in the neighborhood, everywhere. Every phone call I made, everywhere, everything I wanted to know about me, but they never, after the cases, I don't even know if the case is closed yet, but they ain't sent me a transcript, and they ought to. They ought to send you a transcript of any investigation, every note taken as they questioned about you. If they do an investigation, they ought to hand it over. Every scrap of intel that they dug up, they ought to hand it over. I guess I ought to write this up, but I don't think it's going to do any good. It's going to waste more of my energy. Chron- clinical bullying. Clinical bullying, where they harass you with one thing or something, or they neglect you, like the medical thing, or my child got held back a year already. He hadn't had any instruction. All I'm using him for is a babysitter, but their criteria is killing it. Trust me. I'm making the best of the only situation of the only game in town. And it's not working. This representative system is nothing but obstructionist. Everywhere I turn, we don't have one safe trade, transit, insurance, commerce, sales tax, appropriation, accountability, infrastructure, prepaid, dividend bearing system to invest in insurance buyouts. If the government regulates it, the government ought to facilitate it, and we got to stop all this clinical bullying stemming down from that's it's nothing but obstructionist. Oh, we got our intellectual technology from 200 years ago. We got penicillin locked down, and that's the basic treatment for what? A lot of stuff, unless you've been used up on it. Clinical bullying is intellectual technology, insurance company, the school, the judiciary, social services. All these things just coincide together, and there's elements that are fundamentally good, but they're still being gained. Everything's being gained. We don't need regions of the world where we're deployed trying to be the peacekeepers when if they don't like us and they do something to somebody, back up the people they do something to with munitions, for one. And that's all we should be doing. Back up the inflicted, not let the aggressors call any shots. Somebody can hit me in this county and the clinical professional bullying won't even subpoena the witness. Is 4 witnesses, not one subpoena delivered, not one person compelled, fraudulent, aiding and abetting assault. There's only one job the DA really has to do, and that is subpoena the witnesses. If you can't subpoena the witnesses, at least call the defendant, say, we can't locate any of your witnesses, and give the defendant 10 days, 30 days, something a day. The sheriff's department's job is to subpoena and compel witnesses of assaults to the courtroom. All this shit just allows for damn slime ball dope pushers just to get away with just pushing every limit of society down to nothing. If you let one dope pusher get out here, assault somebody, and then you don't even call witnesses because that dope motherfucker's an informant, that's clinical professional bullying. If you give special treatment to a narc, you are guilty of clinical bullying. If you violate the independent sovereign citizen's ability to obtain freedom and pursuit of happiness, if you obstruct a pursuit of happiness, which means the ability to find a place where you're not afflicted by violent assaults and threatened at the workplace. Clinical bullying. If you go to a doctor's office, yes, I hurt right this minute. I don't believe I would take any medication this minute. I do believe I'd still be, well, if I had my druthers, I don't think I would have got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get my son up to go to school. I think I would have got up at 7 o'clock in the morning to start reading a book with my son, because evidently nobody is. if you're compelled to go to this toxic be in a toxic relationship, you're going to have this clinical bullying. If you're forced to be associated with the clinical bullies, there's no other avenue, there's no other result going to happen other than clinical bullying. Stop it. Don't force people out of the bed before their serotonin levels build back up. Got it? It's evident. And I didn't wake up like that. I seen it on the news this morning. You clinical fucking cunts. Have a good day.